Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my top 10 science fiction novels of all time, including books, individual novels, and series. Now, I've read a decent amount of science fiction. I've read about 50 straight-up science fiction novels. I am not including Star Trek or Star Wars in this because those are, I consider, media tie-in fiction, and my numbers would balloon up to like 300 or 400 if I included those, and potentially all the books on the list might be from those. And I didn't want to do that. So those are, I have different rankings for those series you can check out on the channel. Just look up my name and Star Trek books ranked or Star Wars books ranked, and you'll find my rankings for them. But today I wanted to do just pure science fiction series that aren't necessarily part of, different universes and such. Now, for this, I kind of had to come up with some rules because certain things I liked more than others, and I had to figure it out. So generally, for just about everything on this list, I am either talking about a standalone novel or a series where I will specifically focus on one novel from that series. Because it'd be really unfortunate to just have like a 10-book series that I love and have every book on the list be from that 10-book series. So if I'm talking about a book from a series, I'm focusing on just one book from that series. You'll kind of see as I get into the list. Again, this is my list, just a personal list. If you have a different list, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. There's a lot of books that just narrowly missed out on my list, and there's also a lot of books that really missed out because I didn't like them as much. And then I have a ton of books I just haven't read yet. So let me know all your thoughts in the comments section down below. And also, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. But starting with my top 10, my number 10 science fiction novel or series on the list is the Saga of the Seven Sons by Kevin J. Anderson, and I'm going to be specifically talking about Of Fire and Night. This is a 7-book series about a intergalactic conflict that features humans, it features aliens, it features robots, it features kind of all that type of science fiction-y stuff. It is true space opera in space. It has some of the political stuff that you would expect in like a Game of Thrones series, except it's among different planets, and it has a lot of the fun adventure that you'd expect in space opera, and it's got great character work, but also it's very focused on telling the plot, and so it doesn't just spend a whole lot of time just really delving into a character's psyche. The chapters are really short, and the books read very fast because they just go through the plot so fast. And even though it's a 7-book series, book 5 is one of the great culminations and great climaxes to the series that I highly recommend. So that's why it's my number 10. My number 9 is the book The Oracle Year by Charles Soule. This is not quite as science fantasy as it is science fiction. This book is about a man who wakes up and starts having predictions, random predictions about the future, and this causes chaos in the world. Because as he slowly starts telling people about his predictions and they come true, people start reacting to his predictions. They start betting on things. Governments start fighting each other. And even religious people feel threatened that they will follow new religions other than their own because this person is able to deliver all of these prophecies. And so because of that, it becomes a dangerous world, and we go to the brink of World War III. That sounds crazy, but it is spectacularly done in this book by Charles Soule. I picked it up just because it's a Charles Soule novel. I enjoyed his Star Wars novel that he wrote, and this was just absolutely delightful. So I highly recommend The Oracle Year. Going to another series, I'm actually going to show all 3 books because there's a reason for that. And this is the Conquerors series by Timothy Zahn. He is the only repeat author on this list. You will see him a couple more times. But Timothy Zahn, who is my favorite science fiction author, he wrote this trilogy in the late 90s featuring the books Conqueror's Pride, Conqueror's Heritage, and Conqueror's Legacy. He wrote these shortly after he wrote the Thrawn trilogy, the Heir to the Empire trilogy, and before he wrote the Hand of Thrawn duology. And this is a trilogy that is, so it's mid to late 90s, and it is about a first contact that goes terribly and starts a war between Earth and this alien race. And it focuses on this family, the Kavanaugh family, who has various family members. One of them's like a pilot and works in the military. One of them's a political guy. Some of them are scientists. You're following the whole Kavanaugh family in the first book. And one of the members of the Kavanaugh family gets captured, and so they're all trying to get him back. Then book 2 takes the series in a hard left turn that is just absolutely delightful. That takes us into focusing on the alien perspective. And it's not just aliens that look like humans. The aliens are bizarre. And it is really fascinating reading from their perspective. To go from such a traditional science fiction novel to a high concept science fiction novel. And then book 3 kind of combines the two into an epic, really good finale. And so that's why this is my number 8. The Conquerors Trilogy is my number 8 on my best favorite science fiction list. Next is a series I'm more recently getting into, but I'm absolutely loving, and that is the Honor Harrington series by David Weber. I'm about 5 books. I've read 5 books in the series. I'll be reading book 6 soon. And book 4, Field of Dishonor, was by far my favorite, and I thought just a truly great science fiction novel. This series takes ideas like Tom Clancy and ideas like Horatio Hornblower, and even in this book specifically, ideas like John Grisham, and blends them all into a military sci-fi series. Sometimes the military action in this series is hard to follow, but the character development, the political development, the fun of seeing what happens to Honor Harrington, the character that you will absolutely love the most in this series, is phenomenal. And this book just took the series to new heights. I liked the series before then. This, I was like, oh my, this is fantastic. So that's my number 7. My number 6 is the first book in a series, and I have not read the rest of the series, but I just know the first book was that amazing that it earned its place on this list, and that is The Calculating Stars by Mary Robinette Kowal. This is a very recent read for me. I read this at the end of May of this year, and this is a alternate history science fiction series, very much into the hard sci-fi. Some of these other books have been kind of more space opera-y. No, there's not aliens in this book. This is all about the space program and sending astronauts into space and accelerating the space program. So instead of happening in the late 60s, it happens in the early 50s. And that's because a disaster strikes. An asteroid wipes out Washington, D.C., and as a result, we lose all of our astronauts and other things, and we have to go start rebuilding everything. And it's part of what's called the Lady Astronaut series because of the way the changes happen. A bunch of women start trying to get into the astronaut program, and the main character is known as the Lady Astronaut. It's a delightful book. If you've watched the TV show For All Mankind and enjoyed it, you will enjoy this book. Very similar themes, similar type characters, similar type plot lines, all that stuff. And I'm reading book 2 as I'm recording this, and I'm sure it's going to be really great. So that's my number, I believe that's number 6 on my list. Getting to my top 5. My number 5, I told you he'd be on the list again, and he is. Timothy Zahn returns with Angel Mass. Angel Mass is a standalone from Zahn, so it's not a series, it's just a standalone, and it is the first science fiction novel that I ever read. So perhaps it has some nostalgia for me that keeps it as high as it is. But this is the first, outside of Star Wars and Star Trek, this was the first just pure sci-fi book I read, and I loved it. Basically, there's so many spoiler things I could say. Our main character is kind of like a scientist character who ends up going. There's this war going on between these various species, and he's planets and these groups, and he's sent to kind of negotiate and work with secretly behind the scenes. He's working as a scientist in this. There's a girl who is just trying to escape her life, and so she ends up getting caught in the mix. And then there's these innocent people that are just trying to live their lives, and they come across these two people randomly. And it has lots of action and adventure. It's got some great kind of romantic underpinnings. It is a fun book and a quick read. It's right about 500-something pages in paperback, so hardcover would probably be shorter. But this was just a delightful, delightful science fiction read. Next, my number 4 is going to be a well-known book. Everybody knows this book, and that's Dune by Frank Herbert. I love the Dune prequel books that that Frank Herbert's son and Kevin J. Anderson worked on, and I've read 3 of those and intend to read more. I really had fun with them. And then I read the sequels to this book, which I did not particularly enjoy. However, the first book, Dune, I think is a pillar of science fiction and deserves its place in the pantheon of science fiction books. Other books I've been told, you need to read this high concept, great science fiction novel, and I'll go read it, and I'm like, okay, that was not amazing. Why do you guys love it so much? But this is one that the hype, it truly lived up to. And I really enjoyed the character of Paul Atreides. I loved the world building of Arrakis and of Caladan. I really enjoyed the political stuff happening in this book, the action. It's a long book. It's a pretty long book, but it's super enjoyable the whole way through. The religious and spiritual themes in this book are just fantastic, and it's produced a fantastic movie adaptation. The first movie is one of my favorite movies of all time, and the second movie comes out very soon that I'm really excited about. The trailer, as I'm recording this, a new trailer just came out, and I had a delightful time with it. And so just everything about this book worked for me, and I'm sad that the first 2 sequels, Dune Messiah and Dune and Children of Dune, didn't work for me. But Dune absolutely lives up to the hype for me. Although I do know one person that didn't love it. Getting to my number 3, unfortunately, is a book I do not have a copy of to show you, so I'm just going to have to show it on the screen here, and that is The Martian. The Martian is a kind of comedic, we're going back to the really hard sci-fi series about a guy who Mark Watney, who gets stranded on Mars, and he has to basically try to survive with just whatever he can figure out from what the team left him. And then you have the storyline of the people on Earth trying to figure out how to save him and get him off Mars. And then, of course, you have the storyline on the ship that is leaving with all of his shipmates, that crewmates that think they left him to die. And it's a hilarious book. It is a delightful book. There's some language in there, but the story is great. The humor, the character work is really good. I really like just about everything about the book. And, of course, it produced a really good movie, too. And it kind of ignited this love of space exploration. That and a couple of other things. The Martian, For All Mankind, all those types of things really got me thinking, man, I want to explore space. And I rewatched the movie recently, and it holds up as well. But the book, The Martian, by Andy Weir, is just delightful. And the book Artemis, I know some people who hate his book Artemis. That narrowly missed the list, but I enjoyed that one, too. So, getting to my number 2, my most recent read of the list, but absolutely worth it, is another Mars-based science fiction novel titled Mars. I actually could have had the hardcover. I just recently bought the hardcover, but unfortunately, the front of it looks really pretty good, but then the side and the back, the stickers tore the cover. And why would you do that? Why would you put stickers that are going to tear the cover? Anyway, that was really frustrating. Felt like I wasted my money. But this is my copy of Mars by Ben Bova. This is we're sending the first colony to explore Mars, see if there's water and molecules and life on Mars. Not exploring the alien stuff. That's not in this book. But this is really thinking about what it would be like to have an expedition of like 40 people. And then there's big climaxes and action sequences, and there's kind of romance themes. There's kind of fun sequences. There's some great humor. There's great kind of really small character moments in this. This is the this is the ultimate, to me, version of how to do the kind of hard sci-fi to make people think, man, I would love to go to space. Man, I want to see us expand our space program. This is the type of book I want to see more of, because it just shows the potential that we could have in our future. So that's my number 2. My number 1 favorite science fiction novel of all time is a book that nobody talks about, which is really sad because it's such a good book. And that is, I told you he'd be on here, and this is his last time on here, Timothy Zahn's Mantas Gift. This is basically like the story of Avatar, but I thought it was really well done. We come into contact with these manta rays that we find in the atmosphere of Jupiter, and we realize that we can contact them, but we don't really have good communication. And so we decide to have a man who is a paraplegic. He's lost use of basically everything in his body. And so they send him to Jupiter, and they basically transfer his essence into a manta ray body, and then he joins the manta rays and becomes our ambassador to them. Well, there are evil humans who try to stop the manta rays from doing things in this book, and our main character decides, no, he's going to join with the manta rays and be loyal to this new people, and he leads them to victory against the humans. Again, as I said, very much like Avatar, James Cameron's Avatar, but a delightful novel. It's pretty short, but it's just a fun, delightful experience from beginning to the end. I was shocked when I read this book how much I enjoyed it. And it's one of the few books on this list that and once I put it down, I said, I want to pick it up again. I want to read it again. I do that with movies occasionally, but not very often with books because I have a lot to do. A lot of books on my list, but this one I really want to read like right now because it's just so good. And I read this last July. I'm recording this in July. I read this last July, and it was just so good. So that is my top 10 favorite science fiction novels of all time. If you have a list, let me know in the comments section. Please check out my reviews of a lot of these books, and also please make sure to subscribe to the channel. That would really help me out. I'm at about 3,000 subscribers. Want to continue growing the channel, bringing you lots more content. So until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.